Yes, please. Praveena Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
The sky, due to its one second. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So, previous verse, just to remind ourselves what we did last week, Krishna was talking about those people, those personalities, whose vision is very clear, who have got that jnana chakshu, and they are able to see things as they are. That's what Lord Krishna was telling last week, that he explained, like, who can see, diverse variety of living beings and having different bodies, but all having soul and super soul in them. They are able to see that even though they are having diverse varieties, different creatures, different entities, but still they can see soul and super soul in everyone, and they understand that there is no different identity as such, it's only different bodies. So that such people attain the realization of Brahma. Now the curious mind gets a question, right? Like, what is the vision that who has attained Brahman realization? That was, we are talking about the previous words only. That what is the vision of a person who has attained? How is that person? Like, then Lord said that, that person can understand. He can see that soul is transcendental. He can see that soul is beyond these three modes of material nature. He knows that soul, even though it is in touch with the material body, yet it is not entangled and it's like a non-doer. That's what we understood from 13.32. That's what we understand what Lord Krishna was trying to tell us. Now here we are with the question, that soul is in contact with the body and not getting contaminated. How come? If soul is inside my body, it should be touching. Then if it is touching, how come it is not getting contaminated? That question. For that, Lord is trying to tell us, how come the soul is not getting mixed with the qualities of the body? So what did Lord do? Lord said we are all dumb-witted, right? So he's giving us two analogies, one in 13.33 and one in the next verse. And first one we will see over here. What Lord is saying, yatha. Yatha means same way as akasham. Akasham is like sky. We all know akash means sky, right? So sky, space, whatever we can say, the ether. So the sky, due to being sokshmyat means very subtle, na upalipyate. It never mixes. Lipyate means mix hona. Upalipyate, na upalipyate. It never mixes, even though it is sarvagatam. It is everywhere. It is all pervading. You can see the sky when you look up. It is all pervading. Everywhere it is there only. You can't see an end also, right? Tatha, same way, Lord is saying, Atma, the self, that is the Brahman realization, that is in Brahman realization, which is in Brahman realization, we can say, to be precise. The self which is having that Jnana Chakshu. Though Avastita Sarvatra, Avastita Sarvatra, it is situated everywhere. Where? In Dehe, in the body. Yet now Upalipyate, it is not, never mixes. How? There are so many things in the sky, but the sky is not, getting mixed like that. Similarly, the soul, even though it is pervading in the body, all over the body, it is giving the consciousness, still it does not get mixed. That is what Lord Krishna is trying to give that analogy. So basically, the analogy is that space holds everything within it, right? But being subtle, it does not get contaminated by what it holds. It is not getting contaminated. Similarly, though the consciousness is pervading in the body, the soul is not affected by the qualities or the attributes of the body, is what Lord Krishna is trying to explain to us. Now, ether. Ether is what the space, the size. It's the subtlest of things in the material universe. That is why Lord took that as an example to point out that it is all pervasive, it is taintless, it is very subtle nature of the Atma. To compare the subtle nature of the Atma, he took the example of ether, the sky. He is using a simple explanation, simple comparisons to explain very high philosophical truths in Gita. So to make it easy for us, Lord is giving us analogies. We should not kind of, misunderstand that Atma is ether. Atma is not ether. He's giving an analogy. He's comparing it. Like ether, Lord is saying it is subtle. That is what is meant by the comparison. Like the dust is there in the sky, the mire, the mud, there are so many things in the sky, but it's not, they're all pervading the ether or the sky. But it is, the sky is not being tainted. Sky mein daag nahi lag raha hai. There is no scar coming in the sky because it is subtle. Nothing happens to the sky. So many things, the dust is moving around, clouds, God knows what all, the meteors go around here and there. God knows what all goes around in the sky, but nothing happens to the ether or the sky. Here, the word that Lord has used is sokshmyat for subtle. He has used the word sukshma. You say sukshma, right? From there it has come sokshmyat. We can understand that ether, sky, it is the subtlest when it comes to five great elements, the Panch Mahabhutas. We know all by now, Panch Mahabhutas, the earth, water, fire, air, and ether. This is the subtlest. So earth is the grossest of all, above which is water. Then more subtler than water is going up is fire. Subtler than fire is the air. And the subtlest when it comes to five is Panchamahabhut. In Panchamahabhutas is the ether or the sky. Now, more subtler than the sky or ether is the mind. Subtler than mind is intelligence. And more subtle than intelligence is what? False ego. And much more subtler than false ego is the soul. So we can imagine this analogy that is there, but the soul is even more subtler as compared to the sky. Lord has given the comparison of ether to the soul, but we know the soul is very, very subtle. It's very difficult to even, know. It's so refined, the space, the sky. It's so subtle. It's so refined. It does not mix with anything. Same way, Lord is again and again telling with this analogy, using this analogy, that Atma is pervading the whole body. It is not being tainted. It is not being affected by birth, death of the body, because the body is died, gone, but does not mean the soul has gone. Soul is so subtle, it just gets out, it just goes into another entity. So it is above the pain and pleasure also of the mind, because it's subtler than the mind also. So we can understand the soul is spiritual by this statement. Now it is more subtler. So how is it possible for the soul to mix with the body? Right? Because body is made up of these Panchamahabhutas, and the soul is spiritual. So it is very, very, very subtle. So there is no possibility of the soul getting mixed up with the body. Then it's not possible at all. So it can never happen that the qualities of the body are mixed with the qualities of the soul. Cannot, because soul is always higher than the body. Soul is here, body is here. It cannot. The body cannot touch the soul. So the storm, you can see the storms, right? We can see the cloud burst. We can see the thunder, everything. We can see the lightning. We see the rain happening in the sky. It is spread out in different colors. Does the sky become like that? No. The sky remains the same. It is cold winds are blowing. There is hailstorm. So many blizzard is happening. So many things happen. Anything happens to the sky? Is the sky giving a gap and oh, there is a hole in the sky? We can see that. No, nothing happens. It remains the same. Same way Lord is saying the Atma is seated very firmly, unmovable in the body. And whatever changes take place in the body and the mind, it is not touched by them in any way whatsoever. This is kind of Lord is giving us comparison, right? Because soul is experiencing when we are sleeping, waking, tiredness, refreshment. Why? Because of that false ego. It is making the soul identify with the body. It's the false ego that is making soul think that it is experiencing. We may have this question, why changes in the body in which it resides does not stain, does not blemish, does not taint or pollute the soul. It is like how the air, if the air is entering into gutter also, right? Air is entering into stool, air is entering into mud, air is entering into whatever is there in this whole universe, air is entering into everything, right? Does it get mixed up in with anything? No. Same way, soul, the living entity, even though it is situated in different bodies, it is aloof. It is because of its subtle nature. That is why it is impossible for us to see with our material eyes also how a soul is in contact with the body, how it is getting out of it is big mystery. We don't know. We don't know how it comes in, how it goes, how what happens after this body dies, where does it go? The soul just goes. So we need to have that faith, that courage, the attitude that we are the soul and not the body. That faith has to be inculcated within us to get that kind of jnana chakshu. If we don't have faith, then we cannot do anything. So we have to understand that we have nothing to do with this pain, pleasure, whatever is happening to the body and the mind. To reach that level itself is another level. But if we can practice this way, then finally we will have that fixed in our mind that yes, soul is subtle and soul has nothing to do, it is just the body. Then we sadhakas will become little bit fearless, and life will become more beautiful and blissful. Otherwise these material troubles will keep troubling. You can ask anyone, they will have some difficulty in their life or not. Everybody is saying, oh, I have this problem or that problem. Jnana chakshu has to be developed. Sarvas Sarvatra vastito dehe. Sarvatra vastito dehe, Lord says that it is so soul is so near to the body. We have to realize it is in our heart, right? So even that Paramatma also, he is present. He is there. He's the perfect, super soul lying with us, best friend with us, going through one body to another, right? We have to search. We have to search for the Lord within ourselves. We have to remove these 5 sheets, panch koshas that we are having over the soul. We have panch koshas, with which the soul is covered. As pure water in the lake is covered by the moss. Above there is a moss. Below you will see the purest water. So there is no, we have to remove that moss. Then we will be able to see the fire inside, the Paramatma inside. There is no doubt, we can become, if we are determined, we will find him. We have to have that determination. We know what the nature of Paramatma is. What is he doing? He is sitting inside, and he is also untouched. He is untainted by whatever changes, modifications is there, right? So after this, let's look at the second analogy that Lord is trying to give us. यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृत्स्नं लोकमिमं रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत. Yes, please. Shilpa Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, then with Pranam. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Question was that soul in the body, how is it not getting mixed with the qualities of the body? For that, Lord already gave an analogy of space, right? Of the ether and sky and all. Second analogy, what is he saying? He's saying, Bharata, O son of Bharata, Arjuna, Yatha. Again, he is using the word Yatha, as. Analogy, right? So, as. Ekah Ravi. Ek means one. Ravi means Surya, that sun. As the sun alone, the one sun, is prakashayati kritsnam lokam. This whole lokam, it is illuminating the whole loka, the whole universe. As the one sun is illuminating the whole loka or the universe, tatha. Similarly, what is happening? Imam kshetram kshetri kritsnam prakashayati. So kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. So this kshetri, the individual soul, it is also illuminating. What is it illuminating? Prakashayati. What is it illuminating? The entire kshetram, the entire body, as you can see in the screen, how it is illuminating. That soul is illuminating the whole body as such. Just as one sun illumines the entire solar system, similarly, that individual soul is illumining the entire body, is what Lord is telling. How now he took the analogy, first he took the analogy of the space, now he's taking the analogy of the sun. As the sun is situated in one place, it is not that it is, moving around or anything. It is coming down, coming, going up, no, nothing like that. It is situated in one place, but it is illuminating the whole universe, right? It comes into our house also. You open the window, it is coming through the window, right? So similarly, Lord is saying that Kshetri, that the individual soul, that small particle of spirit soul, although it is situated in the heart of this body, it is also prakashayati, or illuminating. What is it illuminating? The kshetram, the whole body. How? By consciousness. That's what Lord is telling over here. So even though it is situated there, although it is situated there, the soul is energizing the whole body. Remove the soul from the body is lifeless. So the soul is energizing the whole body in which it is present. If it is not present, body is dead. So it is so small. How small? If I take the tip of my hair into 100 parts and then divide each part into further 100 parts, we will get the size of the soul. So these souls are innumerable in number. You can imagine how many souls are there. How can such this infinitesimal soul energize the body? It's so, it's beyond our conception actually. This body is such huge in comparison, and like that soul, how is it illuminating? Lord Krishna is giving the analogy with using sun. He's saying it is situated in one place. You can know that, but sun is illuminating the whole entire solar system. So you have to understand that. So the consciousness is the proof that soul is present. Like how the light or the sunshine is the proof that sun is there. Simple. We can't use the brain much more than that because it can't go beyond that. When the soul is present in the body, consciousness is there in the body, and soul is gone. There is no consciousness in the body. So this is what any person can understand. But super soul, it is situated in all bodies. It is a friend of all individual soul, and it is conscious of all the bodies. That's what we have understood, that there are three things, three entities. Super soul is there, body is there, right? Soul starts desiring. That's the problem. We have, the basic thing is why soul is being like, even though it is a particle and it is there and it should not touch the body and all, why it is soul is experiencing all this? Because soul is the one who is desiring. Culprit is soul, because it is having the desire. When it comes into the contact of material nature, we will be doing in chapter 14, so mode of material nature, three modes of material nature. So here, when it comes in contact with material nature, it starts desiring. When it starts desiring, it creates karma. Karma is created as a result, it gets shackled in. As you keep doing, I have made one thought in my mind, one karma is done. Another thought has come, one more desire has come, one more karma has been created. I am getting shackled in the laws of material nature over and over again. Naturally, if that is happening, the desire is there. So for desire to complete, Lord says, okay, take up the body, whatever desire you have, and the cycle continues. So these analogies, it helps us to understand the concept little better. Krishna is super duper merciful to explain using analogies. Otherwise, we would not have, we are Kali Baddha Jivas, it won't get into our head only. Like sunshine with Atma, Lord has compared, and consciousness, right? So after giving two analogies, Lord Krishna is going to end the chapter with by giving a one small brief summary in just one verse. Is trying to give summary. And so we'll see that. Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye viduryanti te param. Yes, Pratima Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attained to the supreme goal. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Let us see the summary that Lord is giving in just one verse. Here, Lord is saying that those who can see or perceive with what? The Jnana Chakshu. So by the vision of knowledge, what do they see? They see Antaram. They are able to see with their Jnana Chakshu, they are able to see the Antaram. Antaram means the difference. What is the Antar? Difference. Difference between what? Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Kshetra we already know now, it's the body, and Kshetrajna, that's the proprietor or the knower of the body, right? We started with this. So Lord is kind of making a summary of this. He said Jnana Chakshu. By Jnana Chakshu, those who can see the antaram between the Kshetra and Kshetrajna, which is the body and the knower of the body, evam, and ye vidu, and understand, those who know bhuta prakriti moksham cha. So those who know the process of moksha, the process of liberation of what? Of bhuta. Bhuta means the living entity, we, body, the living entity. From what? The prakriti, from the material nature. If we are able to understand how we can get away from Maya, also yanti te param. They approach the param. Param means supreme. So we should have the Jnana Chakshu to understand the difference between the body and the knower of the body. And we should also know how to get away from Prakriti, the material nature, how to get away from Maya. So very, very nice usual style that Lord Krishna uses. He is now winding up the topic of field, that is the body, and the knower of the field, that is the soul. He is summing up. And what did he say? He said the true knowledge is the proper Jnana Chakshu, that is, you will get, if you were able to find out, you will have the distinction between the material Kshetra, that is the body, which is material, and the spiritual Kshetrajna, the soul, the knower of the body. And then this mixing of the Kshetra and Kshetrajna, it is the cause of bondage. The moment the soul desires, it is getting the body. That is the problem. And it is causing bondage. So the individual soul, it is always identifying with the body. It is identifying with the field. I am the body. I am the mind. I am going to die. I am suffering. I am now so and so. I am a manager. I am belonging to so and so caste. I am wealthy. I am poor. I am wife. I am husband. So this we are trying to identifying ourselves with this body, and this way what is happening? We are completely becoming ignorant, and out of ignorance, or you can call it avidya, we feel that we are the body. We feel this is this hand, this I hand. This is not I hand, right? So this is my hand, but this is not, right? Consequently, what happens? We go through this ills of birth and death and the cycle of birth and death continuously. But we have to remember that the truth Lord is saying over here is the Jnana Chakshu, the person with the real knowledge is able to distinguish. And with Jiva, that we Jiva, we will understand that all troubles, all these miseries and sorrows, everything is pertaining to the body and mind and not to the soul. Nothing is supposed to be with the soul, but that's what is happening because of the desire, that simple thing that the soul is desiring. You will have a small desire, ice cream khana hai, okay, fine. I want to go and experience how people live in palace. Okay, you have the desire now. You may not even realize that you are desiring something, but for that you have to take another body. How can we become desireless? God only knows. But when we reach that stage and we are able to know the distinction very, very clearly, then if we can remain unaffected by the modifications of the body and mind, but otherwise we are into this flood of samsara completely. So Lord says that we need to have the eye to see capital letter I, Jnana Chakshu, the eye of knowledge, to be able to see the difference between the body and the dweller of the body. So whole chapter, the whole chapter we have seen, right? It's the sharp distinction between the two. It's very easy, when we read, but easier said than done. You try to practically put it, it's not easy. Now someone will come and accuse you of something or criticize you, then all this knowledge, that we have read, it just goes flying out of this window over here, and the anger sets in. And again, we identify with the body. So we need to go above that transcendental level to be able to. Bhuta Prakriti Moksham. So from time immemorial, man is bound and it is confused and deluded by this Prakriti or Maya. But once we have awakened to the fact that we are bound, the moment we accept that, okay, yes, we are bound by Maya, then what is the next step? What should we do? We have to free ourselves. किसी ने बांध दिया है. Suppose somebody has tied you. What is the thing that you will be thinking? How can I remove this? How can I remove this? Right? So we have to start thinking how to free ourselves from the bondage and to liberate ourselves from this ignorance or this avidya. Then only we can reach the supreme. We know we are bound. Okay. First thing we should know, get the knowledge that we are bound. Once we understand that yes, we are bound and we are completely ignorant, then we have to search for the knowledge as to how to reach the param, how to reach the te viduryanti te param, how to reach the param. Moksha is not something, right, that we can get it from the sky or underworld. We go and we get it. No, it is not an object. It's pure knowledge. The knowledge that real man is Atma and not the body. That is the pure knowledge that we have to get. Reading is okay, but practicality I'm talking about. If this knowledge is gained by discrimination between Kshetra and Kshetrajñas, then we will attain freedom and perfection. If person feels that he is a Kshetra body, simple, is bound by Prakriti or the Maya. And if he feels he is Atma, Prakriti has no power over him. There are rishis, munis, and their higher selves who come just to guide us, gurus. They are paramhamsas. They are beyond this. So, how to gain this knowledge is the question for all the seekers, all the sadhakas. How to gain is the question. But the eye of knowledge should be opened. Jnana Chakshu has to open. Now, how to open this Jnana Chakshu? How to acquire this spiritual, power of discrimination between the objective world and the jiva? How to discriminate? How to get this Jnana Chakshu? So Lord Krishna, what is he doing? He's making it very clear that he has bestowed this gift only and only is bestowing it on his devotees. It's not that I can go, there is a tree up there in the sky, I will pluck it and I can bring and I will get the Gyan Chakshu. No. Only and only Lord's grace, only and only Lord's mercy. And Lord is very clear in saying that this gift, he is bestowing it only and only on his devotees who worship with him. Nishtha, faith, and prema, love. That prema bhava has to come for the Lord. You cannot see anybody else but the Lord. Then he will give you that Jnana Chakshu. So how to get it? Simple. Love God. Tesham satata yuktanam dadami buddhi yogam tam. If I come satata yuktanam, if there is no other person in my life, there is nothing else that is, bothering me except loving God and except worshipping God. Satata yuktanam, then what Lord will do? Dadami buddhi yogam tam, he says in chapter 10. He will give me that buddhi. He will give me that buddhi with which I will be able to. So that is why, all people, we must worship the Lord in every way. How? So that this satata yuktanam, so that mind will get purified. And once mind gets purified by doing devotional service, we have to focus on Maha Mantra. By doing devotional service, we are channelizing our energy towards Lord. And then by doing Maha Mantra, we are focusing the mana. Mantra. So we are focusing the man on the Lord. The moment you focus the man on the Lord by doing devotional service, you are engaging all your senses towards the Lord, and we are meditating upon the mantra. We will be able to obtain the jnana chakshu, discriminatory power, to be able to say no, 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 Maya, please go away, and able to identify with Paramatma. So Lord Himself is telling that the path and the goal is completely clear. Why? How? Lord is saying, if you do all that, yanti te param. Bhuta prakriti moksham cha te vidur yanti te param. So yanti te param means if you are doing that, every man, whoever he is in whatever position he may be, he is qualified. He is qualified to take this path and approach the Supreme. Yanti te param. You can go to the Supreme. And the moment we understand that we are soul, we are part and part of God, and we can get away from Maya, if you can understand that we don't see ourselves as body, as material body. We are identifying as souls, tiny parts and parcels of soul. We can go on the spiritual enlightenment path, but it's not so easy, as I said. You need to keep reminding yourself all the time, keep hammering on your head that ultimate goal is God realization. Ultimate goal is God realization, nothing else. There is no other goal. In everything is on bodily platform. Whatever service we are doing, whatever like jobs we are doing, whatever responsibilities towards our family we are having, everything is on material platform. Once the body is gone, who cares who is your daughter, who is your son? They will not be your daughter and son and husband in the next life, right? So that way we have to keep hammering our head all the time. So this chapter is kind of an eye opener for all of us, where we understand, there are two kshetrajnas in the body. One kshetrajna is the individual soul, another kshetrajna is the super soul or the supreme soul or the Paramatma, and how these 24 elements are completely different as compared to spirit soul. These 24 elements make up the body, but the spirit soul is completely spiritual, and the supreme soul, the Paramatma, is friends to the soul, individual soul eternally. And then we also have understood how soul and super soul are two different entities. There is no question of merging. There is no question of they being one. Individual soul and supreme soul one. No, there is no question. In quality, we can be like Lord, but we can never compare ourselves. God is beyond, right? So having that one identity, this is not there. So Lord concluded this chapter, and of course we also concluded this chapter. Hare Krishna. So we'll see some important points of this shloka here. So here, one verse, chapter summary: seeing the eyes with the eyes of knowledge, that is Jnana Chakshu. What can we see? The difference between the body and the knower of the body. The process of liberation from bondage in material nature. So the what will be the result? We'll be able to attain the Supreme Lord, and how to attain that supreme goal. Even if we can get in touch with a great devotee, if we can just lavamatra, they say, no, just a little bit of association with pure souls, pure devotees of the Lord, they can show us the route towards liberation or towards the supreme goal. Yanti te param. They will show us how to go towards param. But we need to pray to the Lord that to get His mercy, so that we can at least get in touch with the pure devotee of the Lord, right? So Lord might show some grace, and He may pull us towards Him. And this one, I remember the story of. I mean, this has nothing to do with the chapter, but I'll still relate the story of an alvar in South India. They're called alvars, like, we have Goswamis, they have alvars in the south. So this was Tirumangai Alvar, and he was born in a very small village in south. And later on, there used to be Chola dynasty and Chola kings and all. So he used to work as military commander for Chola dynasty. He was very powerful and very brave and very, very, very skillful in archery and all that, but very normal person. Okay. So once, he fell in love with a girl called Kumadavali. Kumadavali fell in love. She was a doctor, Vaidya's daughter. So a very, very beautiful girl. She was actually previously she was in Apsara in Swarg, in heaven. She was an Apsara. So, but some curse had befallen upon her, and she was to be born on earth and be here only. So, but because she was an Apsara, so here also she was born looked very pretty and very beautiful and very charming. So he was immediately attracted towards her. So he went and he asked for her hand. He went to her father. So father said, "See, I have no issues, but you have to go and talk to my daughter." And he went to her and he said, he proposed to her. So she said, she understood. She looked at him, and because she was an apsara, right? So she had much more clarity in her mind, and when she looked at him, she understood that this man who is right now in front of me is an incarnation of the bow of Lord Sharanga. When you read Vishnu Sahasranama, it comes, right? Sharanga Dhanva Gadadhara. So Sharanga is the bow of the Lord Vishnu, and she understood, oh, he is the incarnation of the bow of the Lord. Now he has forgotten. I think he is not able to bring out, he is not able to manifest himself as a devotee as such. So what did she do? She tells him, okay, fine, okay, I'll marry you, but I have a condition. So he says, okay, what? He says, see, first of all, you have to have a Vaishnava tilak. I'm a daughter of a Vaishnava Vaidya. So if you want to marry me, then you need to have a Vaishnava tilak on your forehead. And then there are certain other conditions. What you have to do is you have to feed 1,008 Vaishnavas every day for a period of 1 year. You have to serve them. Not only give them food, you have to wash their feet when they come, and when they're eating food, you must, like, fan them little bit, and you should do all the sevas for them. If you do all this, I'll marry you. So he was not very happy about it. So he reluctantly kind of agreed. He said, okay, because he was so attracted to her, he said, okay, fine, I'll get married. I'll do whatever you're saying. So he had money then. So he starts the service, Vaishnava service. He used to feed Vaishnavas every day, feeding 1,008 Vaishnavas. It's not a joke, right? So, but she had taken a promise. So if you do that for 1 year, I will marry you. So he started doing the devotional service. He started feeding them prasadam, fanning them, and he was listening to all the sages, and he was because, see, what do the sages talk? He was hearing and hearing and hearing all of them, and he was getting purified. What do the Vaishnavas talk when they meet each other? They are not talking about material gossip, right? Bodhayanti parasparam. Paraspar, they are talking about only Lord Krishna. They are talking about only Lord, right? So when he heard, his heart also got purified. And that end of the year, though now the year had ended, condition was over. But now what happened? He got so used to, he could not stop himself from serving the sadhus. So during that process, he was very much attached to all these, attracted to all this Vaishnavism and Vaishnavas. He would always want to feed the sadhus, but he didn't have enough money. Feeding 1,008 devotees of the Lord, every day. He didn't have that much money now. So he was not able to bear this heavy expense of feeding 1,008 devotees. What did he do? He resorted to highway robbery. So he would go on the highway, he would plunder the wealth, and he would take that and he would continue to feed. It became a habit for him. Now people who started coming to know, "Oh, if you go via this route, there is this person who will attack, and let's avoid that." So he was very sad now. What to do? One day, Lord Narayana, he comes. He knows, right? Lord Narayan's bow only is his incarnation. So once he comes as a traveler with goddess Lakshmi, and they have loads of jewels and clothes in their cart. So this Tirumangai Alvar, he attacks the Lord, and he doesn't know his Lord, right? So he was able to get all the loot. But then what he sees is that is left is the toe ring on Lord's toe of the Lord. He tried to remove that toe ring from the Lord, but he was not able to do so. Lord says, Array, you have taken all my jewels, all my money, all everything you have plundered. No, at least leave that ring. You know, He says, no, 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 no. That also will be useful. If I sell that ring, I will be able to buy a leaf plate for serving all the Vaishnavas. And Lord is saying, okay, I am also trying very hard. It's not coming out. It's very tight. Tirumangai Alvar, he was like, maybe, you know what? I will bite it. So what he does, he bends down and with his teeth, he's trying to remove that ring from Lord's toe. And the moment his tongue touched Lord's feet, he realizes, what am I doing? Everything dawns upon him. Suddenly he gets all that realization. And then, of course, Lord shows his Narayan Swarupa also. And then he immediately realizes what he is supposed to do next. And then he starts preaching and then he starts composing many verses. He wrote so many poems in their devotional poems towards Lord. The point is that we need to look into that. Even doing a like little Vaishnava seva, lava matra seva, we can say unconsciously, there was no motive that if I serve Vaishnava I will get Krishna prema, or I will, he was just doing it. But initially he did it because of a purpose, but then after that he just wanted to do it, but he got so much benefit. Lord is so kind, right? He made arrangement, and he makes arrangement for us also to remind us if we are forgetful of him. This Tirumangai Alvar, he was one of the last of 12 Alvars that are there. There are 12 Alvars or saints, 12 saints of South India. He is one of them, is the last one. And these Alvars are known for their attachment for Lord Vishnu. And this Tirumangai Alvar, he is the most learned Alvar, very superior Alvar. He got that, realization, and then he composed so many hymns, so many verses glorifying Lord. And they consider he is the divine incarnation of Sharanga, Dhanush, Vishnu's bow. I just wanted to tell that story because one attains supreme goal if we just have lava matra, pure devotees, association. So with this chapter 13 summary, we will end. Arjuna had 6 questions. Etad veditum ichchami jnanam gyam takeshava. 13.1. These are the questions he had. Description of kshetrajna and jnana. Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. 13.2 to 7. Then we had the process of how to acquire the knowledge. Mai chananya yogena bhakti ravi vicharini. Then jnayam, what is the object of knowledge? What are we supposed to know? That there is a soul and super soul, right? Sarvata pani padam tat sarvato shishiro mukham. Then prakriti, Lord talked about the material nature, the purusha and the living entity and their interaction. Karanam guna sangosya sada asata yonisu. So yoni janmasu. There will be sat and asat also, right? So that's what Lord said in the sangosya, in the sangha of prakriti and purusha. Then jnana chakshu, the vision of knowledge. Then kshetra kshetrajna evam antaram jnana chakshusha. Then if we know all that, yanti te param will happen. We can reach the supreme, is what Lord said. So with this we complete. Om Tatsaditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supnishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yogo Nama Trayodashodhyayaha Vancha Kalpatarubhishta Kripa Sindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. If we have made any mistakes, for that we'll say Yadakshara Padabhashtam Matra Hinam tu Yad Bhavet Tat Sarvam Kshammitam Deva Narayana Namostute. We say sorry for apologizing if we have made any more mistakes. With this next chapter, we will start 14. We'll be learning about 3 modes of material nature. That is a mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, how it exerts its influence upon the conditioned soul. How does the soul come into being and how it gets into this trap of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And it's called Prakriti Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, right? So thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. So